Welcome to Hey, it's Carly Rae's Book Club. This is Hey Lit Agent, where literary agents from all different agencies join me to chat about the literary process and reveal what makes a Corey letter stand out. I'm your host, Carly Rae. Today, literary agent at PS Literary, Cece Lyra, joins us to chat about what it's like to be a literary agent. We'll find out what genre Cece represents, what the most asked question she gets is, and if she always wanted to be an agent. We'll find out more right after this. Welcome, Cece. I'm so excited to have you on Hey Lit Agent.
Hi, Carly Rae. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, tell us where you're joining us from.
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, in Canada.
Is it snowing there today?
It's not, it's actually really beautiful and sunny. So that's exciting because it was snowing yesterday.
Oh, wow. Yeah, well, you are a literary agent at PS Literary. Can you tell us a little bit more about the agency and share with us about some of the clients you represent?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I encourage everyone to check out PS Literary's website. It's super comprehensive. It breaks down all the genres we represent, which are all of them, essentially. We represent a wide variety of authors from all walks of life: nonfiction, fiction, adult, kid lit, all sorts of genres and categories. I personally only represent adult. That's both fiction and nonfiction. So I don't do YA or kid lit, but some of my amazing colleagues do. Um, yeah, okay, clients I represent. Oh, good question. But now I have to choose like who I'm going to talk about. Okay, so I think I'll start with Bianca Murray. She is a very gifted storyteller. Her next book, called The Witches of Moonshine Manor, comes out. Oh my gosh, is it already? Yeah, like in 5 months. Like it's August 23rd. That's the pub date. So I very much encourage everyone to go ahead and pre-order that. Um, Bianca is also the co-host of the Shit No One Tells You About Writing. That's a podcast that I co-host with Bianca and Carly Waters. Carly Waters is my colleague at PS Literary. And let me tell you now, I'm going to pick someone from the nonfiction side because I think that makes more sense. I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. Courtney Tracy. She's known as the Truth Doctor online. You could follow her on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube. Her trademarked line is "Your unconscious is showing." And that's also the title of the project that we're still working on. So the world has not seen this project yet, but it's something that we're working on together. And I'm very, very excited about it.
Now, you mentioned, do you represent multiple genres or do you only stick to one genre?
Across the board, honestly, there's no genre that I am not interested in, as long as it's a story that will sweep me away, that will make me forget about the incredibly long to-do list that I have in front of me. Then I'm down to represent it. I am particularly drawn, I'd say, to book club fiction. I enjoy stories that get conversations started. So I will say that I'm a little biased towards that, but I read sci-fi, I read literary fiction, I read romance. I as a reader, I enjoy it all, and so as an agent, I feel comfortable representing it all too.
Now, some literary agents don't look for super polished manuscripts. They want clients with manuscripts they can work on together. What do you prefer when you're starting to read a manuscript for the first time?
I want to challenge that premise. There's no such thing as an agent who doesn't want a super polished manuscript. I don't believe that. Um, I will say that there are agents, myself included, that are more than happy to go that extra mile and work on something before going out with it. I don't think there's ever been a fiction project that I've never done editorial rounds on. There's always something to improve, right? There's always something to talk about. Um, but it should still be polished. It should still be the very best you can do on your own. An analogy that I like to use is, imagine. It's actually not an analogy. Sorry, I misspoke. Just picture this scenario. Imagine that a big publisher called you. Let's just say HarperCollins. It could be anyone. And they called you and they said, "So you have a novel in your drawer. We want to publish it. It's going to be published tomorrow. Would you be happy with that?" And here's the catch: if it doesn't do well, you won't get to write another book. You won't get to publish another book anyway. I feel like there's usually two reactions that a person can have. The first reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. What if it's not good enough? But yeah, like I'm looking at it and I don't think there's anything else that I can do to improve this. So by all means, do it, publish it. We'll see what happens. Second reaction is, oh my gosh, I'm super nervous. I actually think this can be improved. I've been wondering about the muddle in the middle. I've been wondering about the reveal on Act 3. Like, I don't think it's believable enough or convincing enough. Or I'm worried about my character's arc. Like, I don't think I've fleshed her out enough. If that's your reaction, then you know what's wrong with your novel and you know that you still need to work on it. And I'm not referring to overthinking because with a writer's brain, you can always overthink. I am referring to that, genuine assessment that does not come from a place of anxiety, that comes from a place of truly assessing your work for its strengths and weaknesses. So if that were to happen, which camp would you fall under? Like if it's the first camp, great, then you're ready to query. If it's the second camp, I would recommend polishing it up because it's a very competitive market. I wish it weren't because that would make my job so much easier, but it is. And so we have to work with the realities of the market. And the reality is that very few manuscripts get acquired. I interviewed an editor the other day for my own podcast, and I asked her, how many submissions do you get a year? And she estimated around 400 agented submissions. And these are submissions that she actually read. She's not referring to a submission that she, took a look at the pitch, realized it would be better for her colleague, and then sent it to her colleague. Of those 400 submissions, do you want to guess how many she actually buys?
Is it like 10?
12.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, and of course, this is one editor at one imprint, and it's not meant to discourage anyone. Like so many of the things that are our dreams in life are really hard, right? Really hard, really competitive. That's not meant to discourage anyone. I think it's actually the opposite. I think it's meant to empower you with the knowledge of, yeah, it's a tough gig. So by all means, please polish your manuscript. Please send it to me. But please know that even though you think it's as polished as can be, it's entirely possible that I will then give you what I call my editorial opinion, which is essentially a letter in which I anticipate every reason why an acquisitions editor might pass. And I share thoughts on how we can mitigate that. And sometimes we make changes based on that, and sometimes we don't, because sometimes I have a conversation with my clients and we go, yeah, okay, it feels like an editor could pass based on this, but you know what? That's just the novel, right? Like if they passed based on that, then there's really nothing we can do. So yeah, I think that it's a long and a fun process. There's a lot of hard work that goes into making sure that something's ready for submission. It is not for the faint of heart. But honestly, like at least on my side of the table, it's the best job in the world. Like there's nothing more rewarding than working on something with a creator and seeing it come to fruition.
Now, I'm sure you get hundreds of queries. How do you go through them all, and how does one catch your eye?
I do. I think the agency gets 2,000 queries a month, I believe. I think that's the number. So I go through them in batches, usually on the weekend, because that's when I have time. And I'm always on the lookout for a really strong hook. Hooks are very important in books. And also for a clear sense of the story's arc. Who's the hero? What's the obstacle? What antagonistic force is, pushing against the hero's goal, essentially? How does the tension escalate? What's the climax? I want to know what the major dramatic question is, and I want to have a sense of, oh, I need to know what's going to happen next, right from the query letter. And then I do also ask to see the first 10 pages attached to the query letter, not attached actually in the body of the email. And then I always read the pages as well to see if the writing is where it needs to be to essentially catch my eye.
Now, as a literary agent, finding a manuscript you love is just the beginning. After you connect with an author, what are the next steps taken to get that manuscript to publication?
Oh gosh, it's a journey. Well, first of all, they have to sign with me. So there's a call where I essentially gush about their book and ask about their literary ambitions, and we see if we gel well. And it's a partnership. It's a collaboration built on trust, and so it's very important that they feel comfortable with me, I feel comfortable with them. And then from there on, it really does depend on the project. The thing about being an agent is that it's not formulaic at all. So some manuscripts, I recently signed a client, and her manuscript was just so incredibly polished. So I jumped right to the editorial opinion stage, which typically is the very last thing I do, only because I didn't have that many notes. An editorial opinion is essentially when I go through a manuscript and I try to anticipate all the possible reasons why a publisher would reject it, and I share those reasons with thoughts and ideas. We brainstorm, and then she works on changes. And all changes are obviously up to the creator because it's their book. I'm just a small part of the process. So once it's ready, once we're confident that it's as good as it could possibly be, now that our two brains are working on this, then we go out on submission. And it does take me a while to come up with a submissions list, because it's not a random thing. It's not throwing spaghetti on a wall. It's matchmaking. And if anyone has ever done any kind of matchmaking in their life, romantic or otherwise, you know that you need to know both parties really well. So obviously I do know my creator and their story, but then I have to, do a little bit of research and make sure that, this editor at this imprint really is the right way to go. And because stories are so subjective, there's a lot of detail that goes into it. So, I know that this editor at this place just does not like stories with zombies. Like, zombies are a thing they can't read about. They're happy with vampires, they're happy with witches, they're happy with all sorts of supernatural things, but not zombies. And so it's about making sure that I'm sending it to the right person. The submission process can take sometimes a couple weeks, and sometimes it can take months. It's not fun to be out on submission for a creator, I think. It's an anxiety-inducing part of the process, but it's also super exciting. So what I always recommend, either take a vacation or work on your next project, because you're going to need to work on your next project anyway. And then we have to wait to see if we get offers. And when we do get offers, the strategy really does depend on who the offer is from, what kind of offer we get. And it's really exciting. And I think it's really important. One of the reasons why I say, like, make sure to choose your literary agent really carefully is because being out on submission can be really anxiety inducing. It can be a little scary too. And so it's important to trust the person who has your story, right? It's important to trust the person who's helping you bring it out into the world.
Now, what is the most asked question you get as a literary agent?
Oh gosh, the most asked question. Probably what makes a yes. Like, I read a full manuscript, and this is already, at an advanced stage. I've requested a full manuscript. What makes it a yes? What makes it a no? And I understand the question. The problem is that I could talk about a million things that make something a yes. But at the end of the day, it's a novel. It's the most subjective thing in the world, and there's no formula. As readers, I think people can appreciate this. You might love Notes on an Execution, and you might love, I don't know, The Handmaid's Tale, and some other book. I don't know, The Night Circuits, these are all books I really like. What made them yeses versus the books that you did not finish? It's much harder to answer that because they're so different, right? And there's so much that goes into each story. So to me, it's always about a feeling of, I don't want to stop reading this. And whenever I read a full, it is very rare that I get to read it in one sitting, because I just have so many things to do and I'm so busy. But I'm always paying attention to the stories that when I do have to stop to attend to something else, I'm in a bad mood that I had to stop. I'm like, gosh, why did I have to do this thing? Why did I have to hop on this call? I want to go back to that manuscript. And if you think about it, that's how a reader knows they love a book. Like, what are the best books? The best books are the books that even when you stop reading them, you want to go back to them. You're like thinking about them. Maybe you're on the subway on the way home and you don't have the book with you and you're thinking, oh gosh, when I get home, I get to read that book. Or maybe it's late at night and you're finishing chapter 15 and you're telling yourself, I have to go to sleep. But you read chapter 16 and you're just going to deal with the one less hour of sleep tomorrow. So yeah.
Now, how important is social media nowadays in coring and the publication process? Does a strong social media following help in getting noticed by agents and the publisher?
It's a great question. That's a great question. It depends on whether you write fiction or nonfiction. So if you write nonfiction, it matters a lot because platform driven content is big right now, and I don't see that changing. And your author brand should match your proposal, and it should be in conversation with your nonfiction proposal. For fiction, it's a little trickier. I look up the clients that I'm thinking of signing after reading their manuscript, after falling in love with their work on social media. I do. But it's much in the same way that I think, I don't know, this is not a good analogy in terms of who I am, but just in terms of the act itself. Like an employer might check out your social media just to make sure that you don't have anything, too problematic. I think, again, I do look people up, but it's a quick scam. Like I just want to make sure, okay, you're a person, you're out in the world. If you have a picture of a dog, I'm not going to lie, that's great, because dogs are cute, or any fur babies, really. But no one is going to take on. I mean, I shouldn't say no one. I am not going to take on a fiction project because someone has a big following or doesn't have a big following. I think social media, like so many things, is a form of expression. And we're always on the lookout for how people are expressing themselves because it's important to know that we're dealing with someone who we can talk to.
Well, there you have it. You heard Cece talk all things about being a literary agent. Stay tuned because when we come back, we'll find out what it's like to spend a day in the life of a literary agent. Back to Hey Lit Agent. I'm your host, CarlyRae, here with literary agent Cece Lyra. Now, Cece, walk us through your day as a literary agent. Do you start bright and early? Are you very organized?
Oh gosh. So, one of my favorite things about being an agent is that I do a little bit of everything. I do not start bright and early. I do not understand people who like rise and shine. At most, I rise and caffeinate. Um, so I start by doing the easiest thing, which is just to go over my to-do list, do a little bit of inbox hygiene, make sure that everything is filed away that has to be filed away. Really, like any emails that can be answered in 1 minute or less, I'll tackle those. Anything that requires a little bit more attention, there's a special color flag that goes on those so that I make sure that I answer them by the end of the day. Um, just yeah, manage my day, read the trades, catch up on news, see what deals were closed. This is all while I'm drinking my 2 cups of coffee. And then by the time I'm awake, fully awake, because I am very slow in the morning, then I begin to tackle my to-do list. Now, that really depends on what I'm doing that day. I try to schedule calls for 3 days out of the week, 3 specific days, so that I have 2 weekdays where I can do a bit more introspective work, like read things of substance, whether that's a full proposal or a full manuscript from a client. My days are consumed by work for my clients, not potential clients, not people I want to sign, not projects that I'm hoping to acquire. It all goes to my clients. I can be putting out a fire because something might have happened. I could be submitting something. I could be negotiating a contract. It really does depend on what I'm tackling that day. And there's always something that happens at 3:30 p.m. that makes me have to rethink my entire day. So I am a very organized person. I love spreadsheets and highlighters and little different colored tabs, but I'm also very flexible. And I think you have to be as an agent because in the middle of your very well thought out day, and you've planned everything, you've done everything that you have to do, and then something happens and that throws everything on its axis, and you just have to start over the next day and deal with that emergency on that day. So that's fun too. I don't mind at all. I get to work with stories. Like, how lucky am I? I spend my entire day in one way or another, in some capacity, working on stories.
Well, some viewers might not know this, but you are also, as you mentioned, part of a popular podcast series. Tell us more about it.
Yeah, so it's called, am I allowed to curse? It's called The Shit No One Tells You About Writing, and it's hosted by Bianca Moray, Carly Waters, and myself. And we put out at least one episode a week. And we have a segment called Books with Hooks, where we read 3 submissions. That's a query letter and first 5 pages. And we critique them, and we try to offer feedback that's both optimistic and realistic, because I believe you can do both. I believe that you can be both. The idea behind the Books with Hooks segment started because, as you mentioned, we get a lot of queries, and we can't give feedback on all of them. That would be 2 full-time jobs, right? If we were to do that. There's unfortunately not possible. However, we started noticing that there were a lot of common denominators in the no's, like the no pile, the pile that it's just not for me. And a lot of these things were things that we thought we could share with the creators, and they could make whatever decisions they wanted, obviously. So, for example, readability matters, and so we offer tips on how to make your query letter more appealing to the eyes, we should say. The way you start your story, the story's starting point, how strong of an opener you have, that matters. So we often offer feedback on that too. And we also interview authors, wonderful, wonderful authors. We've interviewed, and saying we, it's Bianca who interviews them. Like, I have interviewed an author here and there, and Carly has interviewed people here and there, but most of it's Bianca. So she interviews everyone, like from Ken Follett to Lauren Groff to so just these Britt Bennett. How could I forget? Like, the amazing Britt Bennett, who also was joined us for our retreat, our writers retreat in January of this year. So that was so exciting. I got to be in the same Zoom room as Britt Bennett. How lucky am I?
Well, one of my favorite episodes to date on your podcast aired March 10th, and it was titled How to Ensure Every Scene is Doing the Heavy Lifting. In the episode, you talk about the importance of an opener, and it made me curious to know if before you became a lit agent, if you always kind of paid attention to those small details, if that's like kind of what inspired you to be a lit agent.
I've always been incredibly attentive to these things. We're recording video, right? So I want to show this incredibly embarrassing thing I have. It's a notebook. It has all these colorful tabs, and it's essentially a compilation of, in my opinion, all the things that authors get right, of examples of authors getting things right. And I cover everything from openers to dialogue tags to sharp specifics, everything, like how to start a flashback, how to, remove your character from a flashback, everything. And I've always done this. I've had notebooks like this way before I was an agent, because I've always been such a reader. I've always been interested in stories. I've always been interested in dissecting stories. Do you know how some kids are like, I want to open up this toy to see how the toy works? That's how I feel about books. Like, I want to open this up to see how you did it, because it just seems so fascinating to me. I am such a nerd.
So you always wanted to be involved in the literary world too.
Yeah, it's always been a dream, but I didn't think it was a feasible dream. Like, I very much grew up in a family where, you had to do something mainstream, something that would provide you with a certain kind of predictable lifestyle. Publishing is very unstable. It's especially literary agenting. It's not like, there are months where I'm on a high and there are months where I'm not. And I don't mind it at all. But again, I didn't grow up in that environment. And so I thought that this was not an option for me. I thought that reading would always be a hobby, and that I would always be a dissector of stories. But I never thought that I'd get to do it for a living. And now that I do, there isn't a single day when I don't wake up, even though I do not rise and shine, where I don't feel grateful. Like, it's actually usually at night. So before, this is so corny, but before I go to sleep, I can't believe I'm admitting to this. I always talk to the stars and to the moon. This is not a joke. I do this. I open up my window. It doesn't matter if it's like minus 30 outside. I open up my window and I look out into the sky and I just say a thank you because I get to live my dream and it's amazing.
Yeah. That's really awesome, though, to be able to do what you really enjoy.
Yeah. It's the biggest privilege in life because it means that I spend my days doing something I love. And even when it's a bad day, and believe me, there are still bad days, it's still kind of wonderful. And I feel like the luckiest human that I even get to say this. And my cheeks hurt when I talk about aging time because it's just the best.
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing you could tell every aspiring author looking to Corey, what would it be?
Oh gosh. No one is going to care about your book as much as you care about your book. And that's a good thing. Love your book and take care of your book. Your books, I should say, because you should have more than one, or you might have more than one. And don't stop. Because if you truly, truly love this, work hard, work smart, and, published authors are querying authors who didn't quit.
Well, Cece, thank you so much for joining Hey Lit Agent. Before I let you go, tell viewers where they can find you on social media.
You can find me on Twitter at Cecilia Lyra. That's my last name. And on Instagram, I should know these things by heart, but I don't. It's at CCCECE _Lyra, Lyra. No, that's not true. I don't know my handles. I think it's Cece Lyra Agent. You can Google me.
Okay. Well, all of Cece's handles are in the description below as well. I will put
There you go.
Yeah. Cece, thank you so much for joining Hey Lit Agent. And for those watching, I hope you have a great day.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a joy.